This video was inspired by the recent stewardship initiative successfully undertaken during 2006 by the Presbyterian Foundation and the Presbytery of Charlotte, specifically Steel Creek Presbyterian Church. Under the courageous leadership of Venerable Elders Price Gwynn and Mark Yandel, this initiative challenged Presbyterians to openly discuss the often ignored subject of deferred giving or charitable bequests to the church as an important and meaningful way to witness, bear testimony, and continue to provide valuable resources for generations to come.
Mr. Moderator, Commissioners, and guests, the Presbytery of Charlotte and the Presbyterian Foundation are pleased that Price Gwynn is here today to share with you the story of a successful Wills Emphasis program at Steel Creek Presbyterian Church. Price, of course, needs no introduction to his home presbytery. The program at Steel Creek arose from a joint Presbytery Foundation effort to see what would happen if churches within the presbytery began in a focused way to encourage members to consider gifts from their accumulated assets to help support and enhance the mission of their local church. Within the churches of Charlotte Presbytery, a number of success stories have emerged during the past 3 years, and Price is here to tell you about one of them. He will demonstrate, I think you will agree, that we Presbyterians can move mountains when we put our minds to it. Price, we welcome you to the meeting today.
I'm sure all of you are aware of the massive intergenerational transfer of wealth that is taking place in the first 25 years of this century. We're 7 years into it, and the numbers are already in the trillions of dollars. Every school, every college, every retirement home, every hospital, every 501c3 charitable organization in Charlotte, and I'm told there are 160 in the telephone book. All these people are keenly aware of the transfer, and they're working that side of the street energetically. They want you to include them as an estate beneficiary via bequest, trust, life insurance. There are multiple instruments, and their lawyers know them all. Each of the 138 or 40 congregations in this presbytery has a discrete membership constituency, which is identifiable, committed, and which assembles every week. With that staggering advantage, our churches must be getting the lion's share of this incredible shift in wealth. Not so, if my limited research is accurate. Instead of lion's share, we seem to be satisfied with a pussycat portion. I want to conduct a little presbytery survey. Mr. Clerk, I'll ask you, if you will, sir, to eyeball the responses so that you can give me an opinion about the results. If you are an elder, active, inactive, commissioner, non-commissioner, any of the above, if you are an elder, please stand. And remain standing for a minute. Let's see what we've got here. It should be at least half. It would appear to be that or more. All right, thank you, elders. You may be seated. And now for the critical statistic. Once again, elders only. If the church, your local congregation, is in your will as a beneficiary, please stand tall and remain standing. Please. Excellent.
There's about 15 of them plus you and one other stood up. That's 17 in the crowd.
And at what percentage would you make that to be?
Well, there's at least 160 elders here, so 17 out of 160 is about 16%.
16%. Excellent.
Well,
I thought, by the way, if you're
12%. 12%. 12%.
I started to say, given that math, I was going to get a second opinion.
That's why we hired Donald.
You may be seated, stewardship role models, and accept the plaudits of your neighbors. There are 5 elders here from the Steel Creek Church, 2 commissioners and 3 visitors, 4 of the 5 were standing, and appropriately so. That is a recent phenomenon. SCPC, Steel Creek Church, has been a strong stewardship congregation over the generations. We're now under the energetic, spirit-filled leadership of Jeff Pinkston, who is no stranger to this court. In the last 2 years, our receipts have been over $1 million a year. Now, that ain't shabby, friends, for a 580-member congregation in the least affluent quadrant of the city, sandwiched between an airport runway and the 485 Belt Road. Conversely, deferred giving has not even been on our agenda or screen. By definition, deferred giving is a decision made today that will trigger a gift at some future date, usually in the form of a will codicil, a bequest, or a trust. Those words were hardly in our vocabulary. I've been present most Sundays since 1947 and never heard deferred giving mentioned from the pulpit, never saw it on a session agenda, never heard it discussed, except in the Executive Finance Committee on those rare occasions when we had received a bequest. Did we rejoice? Did we celebrate? Did we broadcast the good news? Sadly, no. Almost the opposite. Invariably, one of us, and that includes me, would say, remember now, this is an off-budget income item. We can't predict or depend on these things. It's easy to be seduced into thinking that we had a better month than is really the case. Were we affirming? Were we encouraging, supporting, nourishing this important way to witness and bear testimony? No way. It's hard to think nourishing thoughts when you're worried about being seduced. If you send us a $25 memorial to honor a deceased member, you get an acknowledgement, you get your name printed in Cross Currents, our biweekly paper. But if you leave us a $25,000 bequest, we try to keep that a secret. We don't publish that news anywhere. Could it be that we're afraid somebody might get the idea and try to do the same thing? I'm not really sure. Does any of that sound familiar? Do you recognize your own congregation in any part of that scenario? If you do, maybe you too need a culture change. How did ours happen? Let's move to Act 2, draw the curtain, up lights, drum roll, enter left stage, Dale Account Foundation and Sam Robertson, exec, talking about the opportunities at Steel Creek. Our session hears and heeds that dialogue, asks Mark Yandel and me to address it. We pray about it, experience a sense of call, and agree to give it our best shot. I have received most of the credit for this initiative. Mark is the doer and I'm the talker. Seems about right for me. To evaluate techniques, to test methodologies, to learn what works, we decided to use the 24-member session as our control group. A questionnaire revealed that only 2 members of that session had the church in their wills, and those 2 were Mark Yandel and me, and the ink was hardly dry on mine. We agreed in advance that the litmus for success was to meet 2 criteria. First, to get half the session, at least 12 elders, to make the church a beneficiary, and number 2, that we be able to identify $1.5 million new dollars in the pipeline, 6 or 8 times anything that we had ever had before. Our game plan was simple. We asked for a 12-minute agenda spot in the 12 monthly meetings during calendar year 2006. That's a total of 144 minutes, 2.5 hours of interface time. Now, Presbyterian sessions are a unique genre. They may forgive you for apostasy or contumacy, but not for being poorly prepared and wasting their time in a stated meeting. We developed 12 lesson plans, 1 for each window, with an educational objective and the mechanics for achieving it. The idea was to include the church in one's end-of-life asset distribution. Over the months, we presented our case. provided reasons and rationale to support it, grounded it in Scripture, talked about the benefits and the spiritual energy released, reported on progress, affirmed each new convert, and gave personal testimony. Between meetings, we made individual contacts to encourage participation and offer help. But those are program details. That's a way, not the way. And details are not my message. Elders, hear me loud and clear. You have an opportunity, if you'll start now, to provide the resources that will extend the mission and ministry of your church, that will free it from debt, that will remove financial constraints and limitations for a whole generation moving forward. It is an incredible promise, but a promise you've got to claim. And that means get your own affairs and house in order first, and then become proactive. As a starter, I recommend 1, deferred giving should be a recognized part of the regular stewardship program in your congregation. 2, a person or persons should be responsible for making that claim, issuing the challenge, serving as role models. Number 3, gifts should be recognized, specifying amount and donor. That is not desecrating the dead. It is honoring the dead and encouraging the living. 4, deferred giving should be proclaimed from the pulpit, should be discussed in officer meetings, should be a topic of conversation among the membership. 5, keep an honor roll of those persons who have made the church a beneficiary and display it. Now, detractors are going to immediately say, oh, no, you can't do that. That's using peer pressure. And my response, it sure is. The Apostle Paul used it unashamedly in raising an offering for the beleaguered saints in Jerusalem. We relate peer pressure to negative results, why teenage girls become sexually active or why teenage boys binge drink, but it can be equally convincing in achieving virtuous results. You just have to apply positive leverage. In the minutes left, let me tell you 2 stories. The first one is intended to be funny. In one of our presentations to the session, I told this incident to illustrate the importance of having a will. Now, if you die without one, the state of North Carolina immediately assumes jurisdiction and decides how your estate will be divided, and that's it. There is no recourse. Story. My number 3 son, Kenneth, is an attorney in Raleigh. The other day, 2 gay guys came in his office and said, we want to buy a house together. Can you do that? Sure can, Ken said, and proceeded to make it happen. At the closing, he said, you guys got a will? And Emmett replied, come on, that's just lawyer con to get another fee. Who needs a will at our age? Ken said, let me run one scenario by you before you decide. Emmett, assume a week from today your partner steps out into Wake Forest Road and is killed by a dump truck. At that instant, you own the house in joint tenancy with his father. Is that what you want? With his father? Oh my gosh, that would be terrible. The guy blames me for the relationship. That would be awful. In telling the story, Ken grinned at that point and turned to me and said, Dad, those 2 wills were the easiest buck I made that week. Story's not quite over. A member in attendance that day went home and his wife asked, honey, what happened at the meeting? He said, well, Price Gwynn got up and told all the gay members of the session that they needed to have a will. Communication is not an exact science. Second and last story. One man said to me, count me out. What you're asking is stupid. I'm not going to make plans to die. That's self-fulfilling. Now, the answer to that flawed theology is this. You're going to die, fella. Even the Lord Christ, God incarnate, died because he was fully human, and it's part of the human experience. Mark and I are offering you a chance to reflect in your death the faith you profess, the values you hold dear, a final chance to witness to the one you confess. In short, Mark and I are not offering you a death plan, but the opportunity of a lifetime. Don't blow it. And he did. Were we successful? Did we meet the 2 criteria? Yes. The 12th convert joined us the second week of December, just days before the test ended. There are now 15. To raise sights about participation levels, we offered and recommended 2 options equally acceptable. First was to tithe total estate assets. Total means life insurance, proceeds, value of real estate, the whole ball of wax. And tithe means 10% off the top to the church. The second was to annuitize one's giving stream. It's a multiplier of 20, a simple calculation. If you're giving $10,000 a year to the church, then a bequest of $200,000, 20 times 10, will earn $10,000 a year at 5% and perpetuate your annual gift indefinitely. I'm happy to report that we can identify more than $1.5 million new dollars in the pipeline. One final admonition. Mark Yandel is 83 years of age. I'm 84. To change the stewardship culture of a congregation is a man-sized job. Don't send boys to do it.
Hello, I'm Bob Leach, President and CEO of the Presbyterian Foundation, a part of the Presbyterian Foundation Group. We are delighted to be able to share this story with you as part of our goal to amplify the voice of those who serve Christ's mission. Through a variety of charitable gift options, the Foundation gives individuals and institutions opportunities to provide valuable support to their chosen mission or ministry where it is needed most, today, tomorrow, and well into the future. Throughout our history, we've seen the positive impact sound, integrated financial planning has on the ability to support mission and ministry. And it is with this understanding that the Presbyterian Foundation Group offers financial planning, investment management services, and socially responsible mutual funds consistent with the principles of Christian stewardship. We appreciate your support and interest. We hope you will join us as we continue to share the good news. Thank you, and God bless.